retirement typically consists of three phases: the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. And people often wonder, how can you maximize your go-go years? And here to talk with us about that is Beau Kemp from Sensible Money. Beau, welcome.
Hey Bob, thanks for having me again.
A pleasure. So this is the question that almost every retiree has. First of all, I guess let's start with what are the go-go years?
It's a great way to start. So our job as planners, right? We get clients coming in and it's how do we get you to enjoy your assets? Like what are your values? And a lot of people are coming to us like they're younger, they're healthier, right? So they're in their 60s and a lot of times when you retire, you still have energy and we have that dream retirement. We retire, we want to go do all these things. That's your go-go years. Some go-go years last longer than others. So this trajectory, right? When you retire, we want to do all these fun things that we've been waiting for, because working's been taking up all of our time. Over time, it does slow down. So you'll hear go, go, slow go, no go. But the it's fun. One, it's this is the best part of being a planner, in my opinion, is when you can get people to spend more now and see them enjoy those assets that they worked hard to save for.
So a lot of times people are reluctant to spend more now because they don't know how long they're going to live. But in your experience, they can spend more now. How do you know if you can do that?
Yeah, it'd be a financial planning would be a lot easier if we knew when you would actually pass away, right? Because that's one risk that you don't know. And if you're healthier, you might live longer. So there's that aspect too. But really what we do is we start out with let's create this base plan. And so we have our ways that we test your plan. We're usually running it through a Monte Carlo. We look at what's called a fundedness test, where we're taking those estimated withdrawals out of your whole portfolio throughout the entirety of your plan and compare it to what you have to start retirement. And there's also a historical audit that comes into play. We like to start with this base. So, okay, what are you doing now? How much of your expenses are your essential expenses, right? So, like, what do you actually need to live off of versus how much is discretionary? So, how much are we spending in extra vacations? Like what items can you scale back? When you're doing these plans, it's some people their plans look very strong in this base plan, and so that's where we get to have the fun conversations of how do we spend more money, right? And we do that by really adding in more discretionary, say for the first 10 or 15 years. Sometimes we'll even scale it down over the entirety of the plan. So we're spending more sooner while maintaining strength in those three retirement readiness tests that I was talking about.
So when you're looking at building the portfolio to accommodate the go-go years, you mentioned essential expenses. Is that's the top priority?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, think about this of, all right, I don't have any income anymore. What do I need coming in for my portfolio to let's make sure I can live, and a lot of times it's we're trying to maintain the standard of living. It's not always the case, a lot of times too when you're retiring, you're so used to making this is the most money you've ever made in your life. And so you got used to that. Sometimes that's not sustainable, but other times it is. And so let's see what do we need essentially. And when we're building that portfolio, we're saying, okay, if I can secure the next 7 to 10 years of these expenses with, we like to use bond ladders, other advisors and planners have different approaches, but it's fine. There's a lot of ways to go about it. But for us, if we can secure that, then it's okay. Let's take a step back and see how the portfolio looks then. Your typical retiree portfolio is going to be around 60% in growth in your equities. And it's not a hard, fast rule that we like to use, but say if we build a 10-year ladder and your portfolio is still reading 70 or 80% growth, right? So everything else gets to go to growth. There's a lot more room for us to build in more fixed income earlier on in that ladder to cover those discretionary. So it's not that we don't cover your discretionary portion with the more conservative investments, but what we do is we say let's cover those essentials first, and then let's start to build that discretionary portion if we can. Um, I have actually quite a few plans right now where we have 1 to 3 years covered of some extra spending that they wanted to do, and every year we'll watch it. So if we have a good year and equity returns this year, next year we might be able to extend that discretionary portion. If we don't, then they know that, okay, that's the part that gets scaled back as time goes on.
You mentioned, Bo, the need to continuously monitor the plan and adjust it as you go along. That's just sort of a time honored rule, right? As you enter retirement, you can't just set it and forget it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's we when you build a plan, you do need to monitor it. Whether you're I mean, I'm biased, use your financial advisor, your planner, right? That's why we're here. Other people like to go do it on your own, but the numbers we build, they'll guide you, they'll put you on the right direction, but there are things that change. It's constantly changing. And so this is one of those ways where if you're constantly monitoring this, so every single year you're able to say, what if we add another year of this discretionary expense? How does it affect our Monte Carlo, our fundedness tests, where we're at in our historical audit? It's called a critical path too. So we're always testing this, right, to make sure. I don't want to hinder the long-term performance of your plan, but we do want you to still enjoy everything. So it's like this almost teeter-totter of how do we balance spending more now versus still having enough later on? Because later on, unfortunately, that's you can face higher healthcare expenses, right? So you do have to be prepared for all that.
There's also a non-financial aspect to the go-go years too.
Yeah, so this is it's I was kind of grew up with a health background with my family, and so it's always been a unique interest of mine. But as traveling to the recent financial conference that we were at, I was listening to this podcast, and I couldn't help but think about the clients I work with as well as our particular field of retirement. And it was really about taking care of your health. And I am not going to go into all the details. I'll share the link for people that are actually interested in this. But basically, what it's happening is first take a step back and think big picture. Part of the go go years is I said you're young and healthy, right? To go do the things you want to do. Let's maintain that health. You can age, but maintain your health if you can, and your financial plan supports it. Now we can add more of those fun spending years to your plan overall. So again, remember, I want you to enjoy all the assets that you have. Ideally, that's you're spending on the fun things you do. You need to be healthy for that. So this podcast I was listening to, Rhonda Patrick, she's a very well respected health expert in the field, that shares a lot of information. And she was discussing one of these studies about how if you were able to improve your VO2 max, it can actually extend your lifespan. And you don't have to go throwing all the weights in the gym and crush it, right? There's a lot of ways that she discusses that you can do this, and it differs by age. And so what it's really doing, and what she was discussing about this study was you're exercising hard for 4 minutes, so you're trying to get a high heart rate, try to get up to that max heart rate, and then you lower intensity for 3 minutes, and you do that 4 times. Pretty simple. It's free. You can do this free. She talked like you can even do it by walking fast, slowing down, if that's what we all have we're all at different stages too in our health span. But overall, what's happening is we've all lived this sedentary lifestyle for the most part. We sit at a desk all day. We're not outside a lot. We're not moving a lot. But this all helps our health. And so you can slow down the aging of your heart by doing this. And she said there's even some proof that people have reversed the aging of their heart. So I'm like, well, let's let's put that out there. If you're interested, go to the link, because again, we want you to be able to extend your go-go years as long as possible, and one of those factors is your health.
I think as you're speaking, Bo, I also think not only about maximizing your go-go years, but minimizing the healthcare expenses that you might face in your slow-go and no-go years equally as important.
Exactly. Yeah, those can get pricey. Obviously, not everything we can avoid, but there's certain things, probably a lot of things people would argue that we could avoid, right? The standard American diet that we go through, the lack of movement and exercise we go through, all this does impact us. And there are people that are very healthy we work with that are in their 70s, they're still doing everything they want to do, and they're not spending as much in out-of-pocket healthcare, which again, you save a little bit there, you can spend a little bit more on the go-go years. So it's a great point that we are able to, it does still relate to your finances in a way.
Beau, I think we covered a lot of ground. We'll mention the podcast website in the video, but I think just for those who are listeners as opposed to viewers, it's what foundmyfitness.com/episodes/CrossFit.
Correct. Yeah, it was a speak she did at a CrossFit event. She's not necessarily a true CrossFit lady, but she's one of those that they brought in to speak there. And but yeah, foundmyfitness.com, and she has a ton of information about longevity and everything like that. There's a lot of experts out there, and she's one of the ones that seems to be focuses a lot about the low hanging fruit items, right? The things that we can do without shelling out a bunch of money to with all these longevity hacks that we see. So
All right, Beau, we covered a lot of ground. Anything we missed or just bears reemphasizing?
no, I would just say that the whole point, right? The whole point of us being excited about retirement, you're thinking about your go-go years, whether or not you knew that was a term. And so, how do we maximize that? One, we need our finances in order. That's obvious, right? And then two, maintain your health, and hopefully, then you can extend the amount of years you can enjoy them.